Hello, it's me, Vera, and welcome to Stitch of Fate, a Vampire the Masquerade V5 podcast. Since we'll be portraying vampires who have left their mortal lives behind, expect that we're going to do bad things that deal with difficult themes and content meant for an adult audience. This content may include, but is not limited to, body horror, drug use, murder, gore, extreme emotional situations, and, graphic images. Remember, don't hold those actions against the players, just the characters. Take care of yourself, mortal, and take a break if you need it.
The jangling of the door attached to the bell closes as it finishes ringing through this quiet room. You actually do stand, Max and Duke, in the middle of a secondhand shop. Random bits of furniture, some CDs and VHSs line another wall, and over by the window, a mannequin with, I guess you could call it a rather fashionable outfit, sits up front where a coffee table and a nice old diner chair fill out that frontal view completely. Before you, the older blonde woman looks to you and clearly gives you a forced smile, mostly focusing on Duke. Please, if you'll just follow me. Is there anybody here you're looking for specifically?
If Johann happens to be available, that would be pleasing.
Understood. Eyes, ears, hands, legs, and other appendages to yourselves, please, and stick close. Dismissively, she kind of turns on her ball of her foot and walks out to what you would consider the employees' only door to the back. But instead of being greeted with a storage room in back, you're instead greeted with a giant staircase, one that does not fit the rest of this building. While the front is old, maybe 90s, 80s shelves filled with random assortments of decades-old things to buy, you are then greeted as you pass through the door, an elaborate, gorgeous wooden staircase that leads up, and as it turns to the left and goes down, it sticks to a narrow hallway that goes up and down as well, and the hallway itself is walls of concrete. The stairway itself just singly sticks out here. She looks up and down and shakes her head a bit and begins to trek up the stairs. If you look directly up, it is stories and stories tall, not remotely suited of the building itself. You've been within the Chantry annexes before, and it always seems to go like this. Sometimes you don't even see the same thing twice. And sometimes you're only shown what they want you to see, walking through a door, directly entering a small room where they keep you. But for whatever reason, in this part, out in this annex, you traverse stairs, stories up, 1, 2, 5, 10, eventually 15, 16, and on the 17th story, she stops. A small wooden door to her left she opens, and you are now greeted instead of an apartment hall, a gorgeous flush velvet red rug that just goes downward. Little doors that have no windows in them line the left and the right, and you're not entirely sure they're countless. You could sit here and count each one, but it would go on forever. She stops at one random door, and she turns the handle and pulls it open, and she ushers you inside. In here is a fireplace that is crackling with a small couch and 2 chairs with a table on it with not a single decoration otherwise. No pictures, no books, no window to the outside. As you file in, she stands at the doorway and she says, "I'll go fetch Johann. It might be a little while. From my understanding, he has studies tonight."
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And she just kind of grunts and shuts the door, leaving the two of you alone as you hear her muffled footsteps on the velvet rug dissipate further away.
Well, she was friendly.
I found most Tremere are that way. They tend to be all business.
So, this Johann guy, you figure we can trust him?
I think we lead with lesser information. We start with the symbols on the wall to see what it might mean. And if he seems keen or interested, we try to bait more out as much as we can. Trap the rabbit, if you will.
And what's our story for wanting to know why these symbols appeared, what they mean?
It's on a need-to-know basis. We were discovering something in our territory. It's a domain-based bit.
Hmm. You think he'll be satisfied with that?
Oh, most definitely not. Rarely are any kindred, but he'll have to swallow just that. And accept whatever it is that we offer. He owes me a favor or two based on keeping his nose look very clean.
Okay, it's your call.
Slight nod.
And you're left to linger for minutes, which eventually turns into close to an hour before eventually the door just swings open. And instead of seeing the same woman who delivered you here, instead you see a very familiar and equally disheveled young boy, maybe in his early 20s, his hair in a top knot, but bits and pieces strand outward. He has a goatee that lines very thinly from under his nose down to his chin, and his whole attire is half buttoned up shirt and half tucked in. He looks hurriedly put together. And as the door shuts behind and he spins around to see you, a great big grin crawls across his face as he runs up and he puts his hand out. Duke, it's been a while, and I love it when I get to see you. And he just smiles.
There is the most assured excitement on your face. I can read it clearly. It's a pleasure to see you as well, Johann.
I love when you talk like that. And he just kind of brings your hand down and he gives it a shake. And as he turns to look over, that excitement quickly kind of dissipates and melts as he's greeted by the large bat-like figure that is Max. And it is good to meet a friend of Duke's.
Well, let me know when you do.
Max, this is Johann. Johann, this is Max.
Good to meet you. I'm going to take a guess and say Nosferatu. And he just grins.
Yeah, you're really bright. I can tell. Quite a sharp tack you got here.
The grin dissipates. My excitement get the better of me, and he turns back to Duke. Duke, I have a rather busy night, but when I heard you were here, what can I do? What is it that you bring me to my doorstep?
Well, I mean, you're clearly the answer, man. You managed to discern that I was Clan Nosferatu within 5 minutes.
I was making it was a joke. I apologize.
Yeah, it's funnier the 1,000,000th time, believe you me.
Duke, how can I help you? And then he just cuts down back over to Duke.
Well, something's happened in our territory, Johann. We have stumbled upon something that is complicated.
Okay. Something you need a little help with, sure.
Right. Well, the problem is we've discovered a bit of a body. And it's not your problem, but we found some symbols around the body. We think that there is something a bit odd or fishy about it. It's just outside of our wheelhouse.
Okay, well, I would love to help, and I'm sure I'd be able to. But I'd have to run it through a few others first. I mean, you could give me the symbols, and I could bring it to I could bring it to my teacher. Or it might even make its way up to the High Regent. I'm not sure. You know how these people are. You know how
I do. I do. I understand. I do. It's unfortunate. I was hoping that this could stay in-house for reasons.
I mean, I could get in trouble if anybody figures out that I'm helping, especially. How about this? Let me see the symbols. Maybe they aren't super illegal or something for me to share with you. Maybe.
Certainly.
And his eyes widen. The big now brown eyes just kind of gazing at you eagerly as you reach into your pocket and you pull out the drawing.
Produce the drawing.
And you hand it over to him, and he grabs it from you and just quickly brings it up. He actually pops out some glasses from his pocket and slides it over his ears and holds it out in front. And he kind of looks it over for a minute. Now, is the drawing just of the symbols, or do you actually give him like a drawing of like the halo and like the representation of how it was?
It was the symbols and the halo. That's
okay. So
pretty
just
much it.
The halo and the symbols around it.
Yes.
He starts looking at it, and he quickly detaches from you and begins to very slowly pace around the room. This doesn't make any. He kind of like looks back to you. This doesn't make any sense. I mean,
What's your knee-jerk reaction here, Johann?
Unfinished.
What do you mean by that?
All right. He looks around kind of nervously, back to Max for a moment, and then over to the door. Without giving you any specifics, these are used in our line of work, we'll call it, regularly. Symbols, rituals, runes, some might even call it. It's blood magic, but they're not finished. It's not done. It's not a complete rune. Whatever they were doing, they still had a little bit more to go. There's missing bits to this. Whatever the ritual they were hoping to accomplish was, well, this, and he kind of just gestures. This is all meaningless garbage.
What might they hope to accomplish with something like this meaningless dribble?
He runs his hands through his hair and actually unties the top knot and kind of like loosens it up a bit. And he's like, now that's a question I don't necessarily think I can answer. Not at my stage. I'm still learning.
So, are you saying that this was done by somebody that didn't really know what they were doing?
They knew enough, and he kind of like bats the paper, enough to use these symbols. There's clearly an education of some sort here. I just don't know if they didn't finish it out of neglect, out of lack of education. Maybe they're experimenting. And he kind of just goes off. They're trying it on their own, trying to finish the ritual without full knowledge, or maybe they did, and they're trying to send a message. It's impossible to know what their intent was unless they finish the ritual. They finish the runes. It's meaningless. It's more like a drawing at this point. Destructive, certainly, but I mean, most blood sorcery is.
But you can confirm that this is...
Oh, yes. I mean, you didn't hear it from me.
Very well. Johann, what might it take for you to discover this? You see, we have this relationship, and I don't speak of it to many people, and, well...
Adam, I'd have to take it higher
Johann,
up.
the adage goes that if I scratch your back, you scratch mine.
I would need to... I mean, how important is it? Is this a secret?
Let's just assume that it is an incredible secret.
Okay.
And you know how
You know what?
I approach things with my candor.
It's really hot in here. Do you want to go for a walk?
I suppose that shouldn't be a problem.
I still have a little bit of time left before I need to head back to what I was working on. And honestly, I haven't seen the sky tonight anyway, so let's go for a little walk.
I'd like to assess if he's
Wits
just trying to
insight.
get out of here.
Wits insight.
Yeah. I got one success.
Yeah. I mean, it's enough to tell that he is being clearly wanting to leave.
Yeah.
And so if you go along with, he eventually makes his way down the stairs, leads you out, and walks out the front door. The blonde woman not even being present at the front desk this time around. And as you make your way out and head down a nearby alley and begin to walk, and the annex falls further and further into the distance behind you, swallowed up by the sea of buildings that is New York, he eventually kind of lets out a sigh and turns around. Okay, sorry. Things can hear in there that we might not be aware of. Is just how it works. I'm willing to help you out here. I won't bring it to anybody else. I'll hit the libraries myself. I'll try to do some research. I'll try to decipher what the hell it could have been. But I am going to want something in return. If I get caught, I'm the punishment for accessing books that I shouldn't have access to.
Maybe you ought to think about the punishment for not doing what we say.
When that kind of comes forward, his eyes immediately break from Duke and they go to Max, and there's a little bit of a concern that crawls across his face, and he's like, really?
I wasn't going to go that far immediately. There is certainly more there lingering. Max, if you would, continue.
Would it be possible for me to do a strength-based intimidation?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'd say strength plus intimidation. As you step forward. 4 successes. And you let those words linger.
Johann, I've kept you clean now for a long time.
And
Nobody's wondered how you manage to move so much product and have so much success. I like to think that I am, well, let's just say that I will stay in your gratitude. This would mean a lot to me. And in turn, I'm willing to continue maintaining our healthy relationship, but I'm also interested in finding out what it is that you as a person might need. We've had a healthy relationship, so what might you want?
He gently nods along as you kind of spiel this, but his eyes never leave Max as he's made that one statement clear, looming in the background behind you as you try to diplomatically deal with him.
As he does so, Max just sort of leans forward a little further and goes, "In case you can't tell, he's the good cop."
His eyes from there snap away and he kind of blinks a couple times and looks to you. Yeah, okay. All right, yeah, I can help. I just gotta give me a few nights. It's not something I can get to every night, and I might not be able to pour that much time into it.
Certainly.
I'll take care of it, okay? I'll see what I can do, and I'll find what I can.
Practice care. We understand that if you're going to go behind the backs of your elders, that this might,
if the Regent finds out,
you're in trouble. But if we don't solve this, there may be something worse that's happening in our domain. So we're trying to nip this in the bud, if you will.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll do it. I'll look.
Yeah, think of it as your civic duty, huh?
I wouldn't want to think of it any other way at all. Just make me a promise, Duke. And as he looks back over to you, if I get caught and I get in trouble, I just might need a quick way out of the city.
Very well, that shouldn't be a problem. I have my ways, as you know.
Yeah. The Drac Pack deals kind of nefariously and quietly, we all know.
Thank you for understanding, Johann.
Yeah. And thanks for keeping me company tonight. And he smiles to you and then awkwardly over to Max as he kind of crumples the piece of paper with symbols on it and quickly tucks it in his pocket. I'll swing by the club when I find something, if that's okay.
I think that would be appreciated.
All right. Hey, have a good night. And he very clearly has a hard time keeping his composure. And but he walks away from the two of you after that conversation is done.
Well, that was a rather terse experience.
Yeah, your buddy seems a little squirrely, if you don't mind me saying.
I would be inclined to agree, but
As you said too, Duke, you've kept him clean in the past. What you enjoy about Johann is his eagerness and his willingness to accept his new life to the point of almost voracious intrigue and curiosity. And that ends up leaning itself to being messy sometimes. An accidental kill here or a bit of a too much blood there. But Duke's real good at making sure that stuff stays clean.
he reminds me a lot of Sean, to be honest. Not quite as far along, but, well, Sean not quite as far along as Johann, but I believe that he can get there. But you understand what it means to knock on the doors of your elders and go against their grandest wishes. It might.
Oh yeah, believe me, I do.
I'd like to talk with you more about that another time, based on something I'd heard from Vera, but that's not now.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. Look, let's just get back to the club.
Thank you for doing what you did. I was afraid that my words were not going to be enough.
Nah, words usually have their limits.
Sometimes.
As sometimes is said, the manhole to the sewers is placed down as the light is cut out. And we immediately cut to the no longer loud crowds of people pouring through clubs, but instead a busier downtown, surrounded by what each one could be an actual ivory tower for any lesser kindred. But for Prince Panhard, it's only the tallest and most luxurious building in New York that she resides in. And it's here at the base of this tower that we find Vera and Sean squeamishly following behind, stepping out of a nearby vehicle and walking up the sidewalk past those who are entering and exiting the buildings nearby. The night is getting late, but not late enough where there still isn't a little bit of business happening nearby. Sean looks nervous.
Keep up. You stink of fear.
Yeah, sure. I'm real eager to go into the place where they said they'd fucking kill me.
They're not going to kill you. So dramatic.
If you listen to any of you, this is not drama. This is my life I'm dealing with here.
I stop and I turn very dramatically. And I walk over very close and I say, wrong. It is our lives as well.
Right, yeah, of course.
Come.
Spinning on her heels, she continues her brisk pace through the front double doors. Inside, there's very few people left now. A few janitors beginning to clean what you would consider some nighttime security, but still at a nearby reception desk over to the left-hand side, attached to a wall, a woman with glasses is poring over a computer screen. She looks up for a moment, squints, and gives a smile. And pulls the glasses down to her nose as you walk over. Evening. How can I help?
Yes. Sorry to bother you. Is Thomas in?
And she takes a moment before she pulls the glasses off entirely. She types a few things into the computer before she looks back up to you. Official matters or personal?
Always personal.
And she smiles, of course. And then she looks over to Sean for a moment and catches his eye. Two of you together?
Sean's just watching Vera, just skeptically.
He's part of my evening company.
Yeah, she's my pimp.
She smiles. The Harpy is currently in meetings with the council. He should be finishing within the hour, and afterwards he'll make his way out here. You should have an opportunity to catch him then.
Wonderful. We shall wait. Come. I'll gesture.
She gestures to some chairs in some areas that you are people sit and wait for their times and take a seat. Unless you want to speak to Sean.
I do.
Then this is your
no.
opportunity.
Sean?
Do I ever look comfortable anywhere?
No.
Okay.
You're rather pale and sweaty.
Uh-huh. Maybe it was when they killed me that happened, or maybe it was when they threatened to kill me again, or maybe it was when,
Would you please contain yourself?
Yeah, sure. I hope to.
We are going to simply ask as to why they are watching you. No mention of this business earlier tonight,
Aren't we gonna get a reward,
We are going to
finding of the... But she's gonna be happy about that? I mean, it's not entirely...
It seems reasonable to me that it is unfair that a member of my coterie, which has been put under my stead, is being watched without my knowledge. I am simply inquiring as to why it is such a secret that one is you, is being watched by the prince without my knowledge.
Yeah, very, what's the word? Diplomatically, as Duke would say, put.
I am nothing but a businesswoman.
Yeah, I gotta learn that someday.
Yeah, well, you could start with a pair of real pants.
These are very comfy joggers, actually.
Life is not comfortable.
I noticed.
Good.
And on that, you're left in lingering awkward silence. And as the lobby continues to clear out of what few people are left and the janitors finish waxing the floors and move on to other rooms and other floors, it is in that eerie silence that even the lady at the desk eventually leaves. But soon enough, the deafening sound of a single pair of footsteps walking on a now freshly waxed and clean tile floor echo from behind you. And as you stand to spin around to face them, you see a man dressed in a very clean suit, a blue kerchief sticking out of his front pocket, and some dimmed sunglasses with a curly mess of hair, completely clean-shaven, and somewhere within you would put him somewhere within his 40s. Makes his way. You recognize him, a toreador by the name of Thomas Arturo, the Harpy for New York City.
Thomas. I give a big smile.
And he said, Vera, and as he walks over and gently takes your hand and raises it to kiss it before placing it down. And your little friend.
Yes, my friend. May we have a moment of your time?
Walk and talk. I'm a rather busy harpy tonight. And he continues to walk out the front door.
I follow very quickly.
Sean, imagine, scurries from behind as well. And eventually you meld into the mass of people on a New York City street. And he continues to talk. He pulls his glasses off and wipes them before putting them back on. Miss Vera, how can I be of assistance to you and your follower?
Yes. We'll call him Sean, shall we?
You shall.
Yes, of course. Sean has been with us now for some time.
He has, and the four of you haven't broken apart or dissolved some might even see it as a miracle. And he smiles over and gazes at Sean brightly.
I do not believe in such things.
Neither do I.
I just give him the, sarcastic snake eye smile,
Now, we all know that we live in a precarious balance where information is, in fact, the greatest thing that we can own. And unfortunately have found out that Sean has eyes all over him.
He simply kind of gives his brow furrows and he gives a very solid nod before turning to you. And that surprises you?
Not entirely, but why it was kept a secret does.
Any number of people could be tracking him. He is a thin blood. And he looks over to you. No offense.
Not when I have information to believe that it was the prince's hand.
I see. Well, if that is the case, then I would ask no questions and count your blessings that it's just the prince. And he smiles.
Here's to hoping. If something else arises, and turns out to be the case that we may need to know, I would think you would do me the dire favor of at least letting me know.
If there was ever a thing to tell you that I thought was most important, I promise, Vera, I would lay it at the doorstep of the succubus itself. He looks over again to Sean. But again, it is what he is.
I'm sitting right here.
It's unfortunate, but I'm aware.
Yes. Sean has proven beneficial in the long run. So I give him the benefit of the doubt.
He kind of just gives a nod. Well, the prince also seems value in the half-breeds, so perhaps there is something valuable to them after all.
Perhaps. Maybe one day I will catch the prince's ear. It would be wonderful to maybe ask these questions more directly.
I have a feeling, Miss Vera, you're asking the harpy to help you here. And I am informing you as the harpy that should anything of dire consequence be need to know on your end, I'll graciously inform you. As for the Duskwalker, then do you have a preferred moniker? And he looks past Vera.
Yeah, it's Sean. And Sean in this moment sort of changes from starting to get pissed off to acting as a supplicant. He's like, look, he does a little, can I have some more, sir, with his hands?
Yeah, he brings them up, cupped together. And it's like,
sir, I know I'm in great debt to you and all of the wonderful Camarilla folks, but a humble...
When Vera begins to sigh, he actually holds up his hand. He needs the practice.
I know. It is my patience that actually need practice. Continue, Sean.
I really want to know what this mark does. And maybe you could see it in your heart to enlighten me and maybe make me better.
He stops on a dime in the middle of the crowd as people actually bump into him for a moment, and then before they even begin to say anything, he just looks behind them and they immediately separate, and there's a small hole in this crowd now. He pulls off to the side and faces you, squares up with you directly, Sean, and looks to you. I will make this as hopefully clear as I possibly can, boy. But mortals, kind, for the longest time, one of their greatest fascinations is that of the world in which they inhabit. No. The wildlife that surrounds them, the areas that they colonize, the trees that they cut down, they strive to understand before they take. You can kind of see yourself as like one of those wild feral wolves that we've tagged. We're curious to keep an eye on you, see exactly how you move and what you do in our colonized world to ensure that we keep you under control. A wild, rabid breed of animals, half accepted and half unchanged, if I was to use it politely. You're a curiosity, and to some, at best, you're a danger, and to at worst, you're a sign of the end of our lives. So, young Sean, we want to keep an eye on you as he fingers where the brand would be, because if we let feral wolves breed too quickly, you'll overtake us before we know what happened. And he kind of gently pats your cheek before he stands up straight.
Thank you. I needed that. The thing is, I was wondering.
Sean,
if
don't you feel
so...
better already?
I do. It's really enlightened me. It's just that if the likes of me is so lowly, and you know, I understand it's a threat, but why is the prince personally so interested?
Because, my boy, the prince, for some bizarre reason, acceptable or not, has a soft spot for your kind. She can't have those she's brought into the Camarilla betray her, could she?
Of course not. I wouldn't even consider it. I can't even imagine the sort of power you wield.
But you may not consider it, but many of others of your kind have and continue to on these common nights.
You know what? That's right. I don't spend a lot of time with them. Reprobates, you know?
And he smiles warmly, and that's probably why Prince Panhard took a kind of liking to you. That, and of course, Larson, and he chuckles. A man of the heart too big for his own good.
Larson's good people. And it's good that I get special attention from the prince. I'm sure her time is limited.
And precious.
I can't imagine the share of it that we Thin Bloods get is greater than what you get, is it?
It could never be. The Thin Bloods... I feel as though you are trying to rile me up, Mr. Sean. These questions have gone from intriguing to bothersome, and he turns to Vera.
Thomas, your time has been precious. Thank you for your wise words of wisdom upon us both.
How is the club handling, by the way? Any consideration to move it to the rack? You know the prince would quite enjoy that.
It's rather prosperous, in fact. I'm considering an expansion.
Well, I'm eager to hear of your future plans.
And the invitation is, of course, kind, but what do I have to offer the rack? Yeah?
You would do nothing but enhance it.
So you think.
He chuckles and looks back over to Sean before back to you. Well, I have meetings to attend to. I hope you enjoyed our brisk little walk on this clear evening.
It was quaint.
Some might even say enlightening. And he chuckles.
Oh, I would. He does a very big, grand bow.
Is it obviously sarcastic out of curiosity?
God.
It is.
He just kind of gives you a smirk, and he turns and before he leaves, just another night then, and he waves, and he blends and disappears into the crowd, leaving the two of you off by the side, as kind of left alone.
Do you feel better about yourself?
Glasses on at night is tacky. Let's go.
Listen. Your sass is less than welcome. Working hard, I
You seem to enjoy it.
enjoy a lot of things. Your sass is not one of them.
He did, though.
Yes, well, I know all kinds of things that he likes.
I do not want to know.
Now, I'm a bit concerned about the eyes. Cannot imagine that the prince has a single set on you. So, moving forward, you're going to need to be a bit more aware.
If I need to get anywhere unnoticed, I could probably give it a good go.
This
you don't want to be seen with me, that's fine.
Please. I can be seen with anyone I want. This is more about the safety of everything we have built, yeah?
Yeah, well, I don't want to get anyone in trouble more than I already have, apparently.
It's not. So. I'm afraid that our secrets will begin to leak.
We don't have any secrets.
I gesture to myself grandly. I have no secrets.
Unless you're hiding some sort of magic, very thin book under that bodice, then...
Watch your words.
Yep. Okay. I'm just saying that I'm here for all of us.
So you just need to be careful wheeling and dealing on the streets.
That it's profitable. You can't deny that.
I will not deny it. You can wheel and deal in the club. But on the streets there are eyes, and there's a school a few blocks up.
Yeah, and a very different demographic.
As true as this may be, it puts much more devious eyes on us. The last thing... Are you gonna argue
Don't look at me like that. Did you think a bloodsucker like the prince gives a rat's ass about how much dope I, shovel to whoever comes by?
You think that the prince is the worst thing to worry about?
I mean, yeah.
The prince doesn't give two flying bats about us. We have much worse things when you wheel and deal to children.
There's no children as far as I know. Their IDs check out.
How about you do me a favor?
Mm-hmm.
Until you can smudge that brand off your shoulder, you're going to be more careful.
I'm going to be very careful because I don't want another pervert taking pictures of me, you know?
Trust me, there was no pervert taking pictures of you. Take it from someone who knows.
Anyway, I thought we were going to tell, top brass about that so we could get a little extra, whatever it is you want. Space?
Oh, we will do that. Everything in good time. All I have is time. Why rush things? Plus, I need to sweeten the pot and assure that we actually know what is going on. Right now, I'm all full of assumptions, and it makes me feel bloated.
Sure. Let's go.
I rally my car.
Yep, and you get your driver pulls up relatively shortly, and both of you pile in. Driven back to the club, presumably, where all four of you will regather once more as the night wanes to its end. It's been a long night of discovery of crime scenes and meeting up with those who you can, and the sun rises a mere hour or two away when the four of you finally reconvene in the basement of the club.
So, what's the story?
Prince loves me. Thinks I'm special.
The prince seems to be tagging most of the thin bloods in the city, for whatever weird fetishy reason.
And that brand, is that actually let him be tracked magically, or was he just being hysterical?
Unfortunately, it is truth. So, we have asked Sean to put a lid on his antics.
Good.
I'm going to be a good boy, apparently.
Just until we can wipe it off.
Yeah. You gotta keep your nose clean for now, kid, alright? I take that as a yes.
Yes, yeah.
That exasperated sigh, can we take that as a yes?
Whatever you say, Max.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't want to fuck this up.
Good. See that you don't.
Hey, an honest emotion.
I'm always honest.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, we got Duke's fanboy on the case. He's gonna look into it.
Duke.
He doesn't seem to know what it was right away. In fact, he said it didn't make any sense. It was like a incomplete ritual or something. It was basically just nonsense. Nonsense, yeah.
An amateur?
That's certainly the Cliff Notes, but yes, that's about what it amounts to.
Interesting. What would an amateur want with the Prince's School?
Yeah. We gave you the Cliff Notes. If you want the more expanded version, I'm sure that Duke would be willing to regale you for hours on end.
Well, as much as I would like to say I have all the time in the world, I
For
don't
kindred,
know
we have plenty.
Yes, well, some things we don't have time for, Duke. Sean, rally your gang or whatever they are.
Bunch. They're a bunch. Those guys are the
right.
bunch.
The bunch. Rally the bunch.
I will bunch him up.
Please,
One problem. Max reshaped my phone into a volleyball.
Right. Oh, yes, here. I reach in a very tight area and pull some money out and hand it to you. Here, go buy a new phone. Make sure it can be disposed of easily.
Wad of like a few hundreds just hits the ground.
Yeah, okay.
You're sweating again. I can smell it. Ugh.
And off he goes to fetch a phone. The evening will pass by. You will fetch a brand new phone. And for the most part, there's very little that needs to be done on an official capacity for the further night. But before we wrap up this session, let's open the second night. Everybody rouse check for me.
Oh, my.
As you wake up. So Vera gets a little hungry. Everybody else is fine. Vera gains a little hunger. Now the club is the club up and running by the time you arise each evening, or does it not open until you are awake?
Oh, no. I mean, it can open. It needs to, because
Certainly.
I will be fashionably late.
Okay, that's fair enough. So you all arise in your individual havens, and I'd like to know what that looks like. So we'll start with Vera, the owner of this club. Within this club is your haven. Where do you rest at night?
Vera has the topmost level of this refurbished theater, which is basically like an attic space. And she's refurbished it to this kind of beautiful velvet-lined lounge area, no doubt.
Completely sunproof.
Completely sunproof. And then in one corner, she has mirrors and a ballet bar. The only place that she can practice safely.
Fair enough.
And she will spend many hours sitting at a vanity full of tools of a sort.
Certainly. And that's where we end up seeing Vera waking up, but as we slide out of that room and make our way down a single floor, we peer into another room, this one a mess of clothes and pillows and blankets all over. In the center lies a disheveled-looking Sean surrounded by two others. What does this look like when anybody peers in for the evening?
It looks like a crack den. Because that isn't too far from the truth. There's probably a white speckled mirror somewhere on the floor, discarded, rolls of notes, and little baggies in various corners of the room with intricate construction equipment for his particular trade. And the other two people he's lying on the floor with look a little strung out, as if they've inherited whatever it is that Sean is or does to make him look so tired all the time. And Sean's probably just lying back with like resting on one of them.
Yep.
He's been awake for a very long time at this point.
Certainly.
And he like rolls one of them over.
He kind of goes with a grunt, but just kind of moves.
Yeah. And sparks up
as you stand up and get ready for the evening. And the camera kind of follows you as you walk out of your room, and it swirls down to the actual club floor that's filled with people at this point. Up above, just on the balcony, we can actually see Vera stepping out as well. Vera and Sean both overlooking, but the camera doesn't stay there as it swirls back downstairs, where Duke and Max end up spending their evenings. What does Duke's little haven, if you'd call it that, look like?
My haven's actually just upstairs behind stage.
On the main floor. Got it.
It was the original staging area for
Right.
for the ballerinas. It was the dressing rooms. And this has been fixed to be minimal. Probably 4 or 5 rows of can lights, a cot at best, a desk that is a few notebooks that are keenly placed. Everything has a space. Everything has a home. There's a single pen, and it seems to be rather old, but what sets it out of sorts is that the pen itself is metal. It's an aluminum pen. And when you see the figure sort of come to life, when you kind of see him waking up, he still wears the same clothes until he has to change, but he doesn't quite really become Duke until the glasses slide on and just down the bridge of his nose to the point where his chin comes forward in that typical Ventru look. And he'll sit at that desk and move that pen several times before it finds its home again. And he just sort of watches these figures that don't really have much of a shadow, these women that he sees, ballerinas, that he watches in his own music box of a home.
And you're taken with that for the beginnings of almost every night, before eventually the show stops, and sometimes it doesn't, but then you're forced to peel yourself away. But eventually you have to leave and then meet your way downstairs as well, where we finally see the last haven of Mr. Max. What does his little ramshackle hole in the wall haven look like?
Ramshackle hole in the wall. That is exactly what it looks like. It's a converted storeroom. There's still boxes of supplies and things for the club upstairs. There is a very sturdy crate that he sleeps in. The room itself is located near access to the sewers, although the sewers, that access point doesn't open up directly into his room. There are no windows, obviously, and considering Max's age, there's very few personal effects lying around, almost nothing, in fact. There's, leaning up against the wall, his shotgun, there's various weapons lying around, a whetstone, that sort of thing. However, there is, as mentioned in a previous conversation with his ghoul, Sam, there is a very beaten-up copy of Action Comics #1, as well as several, what would be, if they were in any kind of good shape, valuable comics, Detective Comics #27, Whiz Comics #2, all these very, very important comics, and most of them have been damaged and they're dog-eared and whatnot. They're also suffered some burn damage, and they're in fact the only thing that he was able to rescue from his previous haven.
And this mighty little closet that is once yours certainly is a stark reminder every evening as you wake up of how far you've fallen from where you once were. But there's not much time in this night to enjoy such luxuries, as instantaneously you are alerted, Vera, by a local, one of your bouncers, that you have company from a Mr. Larson, who's here to see you this evening.
Oh, a surprise visit. I am underdressed.
You were expecting him this evening.
Oh, I was.
Yeah, he said he was going to come back the next night for information.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, show him to the VIP booth. I will be there momentarily.
Certainly. And the bouncer kind of gives you a head nod and makes his way down. Do you gather the rest of the coterie?
Yes, of course.
One by one, Vera shows up at your door, first at Sean's, then at Duke's, and finally at Max's, to let you know that Mr. Robert Larson has arrived, as scheduled.
So we're meeting him in the VIP room?
That's where she sent him.
Is that isolated, or can it be viewed from the rest of the club?
It is an isolated, like, VIP smoke lounge. I imagine that's, like, upstairs?
It's upstairs. It's kind of velveted, roped away. It's not as, like, secure as the basement would be, because the basement's kind of ignored, but it's pretty fucking private.
Okay, so yeah, so there's no chance of being observed I don't need
Yes,
to,
no, this is built specifically for her to take her guests up there and talk business that's not human business.
Okay, well, I'll cloak on the way up there, obviously, but then I can be visible during the meeting.
As you all file in one by one, unless there's any conversation that wants to be had beforehand, he's already sitting in a booth in your VIP area. He's leaning on both of his elbows on the nearby table with his hands resting on his knuckles. And as you arrive, he quickly snaps up and places his hands on the tables and stands and greets you each as you walk in. With obviously Max not being greeted until after the door is shut and he shimmers kind of into appearance in front. Good to see you. Thank you for meeting me so timely. I know it's kind of early.
Yes. We promised you some bit of information.
So you have information then. And he actually kind of sits up straight when you say that, and he actually gestures to the booth so you know it's his prerogative to invite you to sit.
Yes. I seat myself. We did some legwork. Gentlemen, would you like to inform him as to what we found?
Yeah, they're fucking tracking us. You know that, right?
Well, that is what we found out secondarily. I mean, first.
Long story short, the ghoul is dead.
He actually does like loosen his stance a bit and he sighs. That's what I heard, but I wasn't.
Do you want to see him?
Yeah,
No.
he was all the way dead. And I pull out the drawing in my notebook. It's like, this is the state we found him in.
You slide the piece of paper across the table and he pulls it forward and looks at your drawing of the dismembered body. Do you have the symbols up there as well, or are you just showing him like a drawing of the body? I don't know how many drawings you did.
I think well, that's a question. Did we want to obscure those signs? I think actually,
something you guys would have decided beforehand.
Given that we're now having someone look into that, Max redid the drawing, so it's just sort of like some generic symbols and
sure.
Yeah, there was some kind of symbols on the wall. I don't know.
Oh, and he kind of pulls it forward and his eyes widen a bit. This is. I'm sorry. And he looks over to you that you had to walk in on such a gruesome scene. Wow.
Damn right.
And he looks at you, kind of squints. He's like, yeah, those don't look like anything. Kind of gesturing at the symbols, and he places the paper on the table.
Wits insight.
Yeah, you may wits insight. But again, Max specifically obscured, like kind of did like a nonchalant job on the symbols so they don't look the same anymore.
One success.
Yeah, it seems like he's being honest, at least so far.
The body was acquired, dealt with. The scene wiped.
Okay. Well, that was a lot more simple than I was expecting. And this is it. Body, we don't know why. I mean, that's a problem. But if the prince can be informed at the very least that the ghoul has been found and the scene has been cleaned up and no masquerade breaches has happened, I imagine she'll close the book on it and let it go.
Imagine that.
Didn't look like the place had been disturbed. He'd been dead, I'm going to say 5 or 6 days when we found him.
It doesn't really make... And he just kind of like cuts himself short as he's clearly musing openly. Was there anything else then? Just the body and...
Why did you anticipate that it was going to be much more difficult?
Wasn't necessarily anticipation. But when you strike at the ghoul of the prince of a kindred city, you'd think there'd be more to it than just a petty murder of some sort. There's got to be more to it. But if the body was lying there for 5 days, you're saying maybe it was a revenge kill and they left it at that. A message to send to not fuck with whoever maybe the prince fucked with. And he kind of raises his hand. I don't pretend to know the prince's business.
There's a correlation that I'm detecting, Mr. Larson. You brought this specifically to us. There's a reason that you did that.
Yeah, and it's not exactly a coincidence that pictures of me were on that dude's laptop.
His eyebrows raise. I didn't know about that point.
Yeah, well, so far they're not just tracking me via this thing, like scratches at chest, and then gestures to you. I don't know where yours is, but they're not. I
Mr.
don't like these
Larson,
people.
why would the ghoul of the prince have pictures of Sean on his computer?
Oh yeah, let's get another explanation of that.
I apologize to disappoint, but I'm not entirely sure, unless Sean has been up to something that's worthy of watching.
I am so boring, so dull. No one cares. Nope, not me. Didn't do anything.
Just kind of a coincidence that the guy whose murder you asked us to look into happens to be keeping one of ours under surveillance.
Is Sean lying? Is Sean lying? I want to
You
wits
can-
inside that business.
Yeah, I'll wits inside it too.
You're welcome
Yeah.
to Wits Insight.
Sean's lying.
Sean, would you
watching-
like to make a roll?
I only got a 1.
I'm watching Mr. Larson. My eyes are kind of training away from
You're
him.
welcome to Wits Insight, Mr. Larson, as you're interrogating him.
Yeah, okay.
Max with a
Yes,
4,
Max. This is-
messy
yes,
critical
Max.
success.
Ooh, okay.
Duke's
Okay.
having a hard time. Do you want to make a roll, Sean?
I am not sure specifically what I would be obscuring.
That's what I was
information
curious,
would
if there
be
was something
obscuring.
in your own history that,
That
you're
you're
trying to
not
keep from
actually
them.
up to something. Are you up to something that
I
we don't know
am-
about?
Well, Max knows because I think probably Max knows because I'm a little bit cheekier to him and a little bit more open with Max. He is 100% sure that I haven't done anything more nefarious than usual.
And maybe even Max with the messy critical, you even yell at him a little bit. You know, you kind of step up and lose your temper for a flash of a moment to get a raw reaction from him. And in doing so, you realize, yeah, he seems to be completely as honest as he believes to be.
Yeah, I think he's clean, or about as clean as he gets.
Oy.
Well, that's good.
Then why?
Can I see and he kind of reaches forward for the paper again. Has it been picked up by Duke at this point?
I mean, I probably saw it go back to
Sure.
to Max. Would I have noticed that it was different?
I mean, if you grabbed it and looked at it, it would be obvious that he redrew it to obscure the rune aspects.
Depends if Max tried to stop him from seeing it.
Would you try to prevent? Like, would Duke be aware that you redrew it? Is the question. Would you have
I
informed
think
Duke?
I think we would have discussed it. We would have, maybe it's best that we not tip our hand right away. But
Sure.
if necessary,
Okay, if it was
we
discussed,
could-
then I wouldn't say anything.
Right,
yeah.
but if necessary, is this a point where Duke wants to change his story at all, or do you kind of just go from there?
I think we would have said if necessary, we might let them in on the runes themselves. But it might be best to play it close to the vest first.
Yep, either one's an obvious has its own benefit.
As much as I appreciate your regular company, we have completed our task, have we not?
Yeah. You have, yes. There is an Elysium scheduled not long from now. At that point would be the best opportunity to bring forth your findings and that you've been able to clean up the mess for the prince. And I imagine she will look pleasantly upon your actions.
Wonderful. This is good news, everyone.
And how's about you?
He just kind of claps his hands. Consider the information you brought to me payment.
Yes. Well.
An
if there's-
assurance of a sort. And he kind of just smiles.
Yeah, and sorry, what are we getting in return for this payment?
You are getting the kind gaze of our dear prince for finishing a cold case of her missing ghoul.
Well, we certainly appreciate a kind gaze or two.
He does kind of give a nervous chuckle to that.
Until next time.
As you kind of finish up and he awkwardly steps away from you and just do kind of let his gaze linger for a while before
will.
and there's a few times where he looks back to you, Duke, seeing if you're tracking and watching him before he snaps away and eventually just kind of hurries out the door of the VIP room in a very awkward manner, leaving the 4 of you standing.
Well.
Duke, there's something on. There's something.
He's not telling us everything, that or he's lying.
Of course he is.
Yeah, well, we didn't exactly tell him everything.
True, but I think it's best to keep those runes under wraps until we know what they mean.
Agreed.
Whatever.
I have a question that I wanted to pose openly, if that's okay.
Well, Duke. We've never kept you from being open.
Why would the Primogen want to not gain this favor of the prince himself? If the Thin Bloods are already in favor of the prince, does it not rise suspicion?
Possibly. I've been mulling a similar thought over in my head.
Maybe he just really hates that ghoul. Wants
Yes.
to make sure he's dead.
Because
Maybe he
all
had-
kindred base their lives off really hating something.
I don't know. The whole pictures thing got him a bit sparked up. So
Yes.
maybe it was that. Maybe so. Maybe they had pictures on him.
Maybe
he knows
we
what's happened.
maybe we take this direct to the prince, if we can.
It was a thought that I had had. Elysium is coming, and if we can figure out the rooms, that they cannot, or at least gain more information, then it doesn't matter if the Thin Blood Primogen came to us or not.
Mr. Larson is definitely hiding something. Sean, if you don't mind, I'd like to take a look at all of those photos again. I'm sure it was just more than a picture of your ass.
Let's hope so.
There's two. But yeah, I'll go get the laptop for you.
We should be vigilant over the next few days. And if Sean is being watched, the last thing we need are peering eyes.
Yeah, I've got something for that. Don't worry about it.
Aren't you clever?
Sean scurries off to grab the laptop. And as the night kind of collides and as everybody begins to piece their little puzzle pieces together and re-go over evidence with an Elysium on the horizon and a confused Thin Blood Primogen leaving mixed messages and an incomplete story, we'll leave our coterie here for now. And when we return, the mystery will continue as Session 2 reconvenes in a week's time. We'll leave it there.
Very special thank you to Kimberly and Sean Casey for sponsoring this little podcast. Stitch of Fate wouldn't be possible without your incredible kindness and support. You sure know how to rouse our blood. Oh, before you go, do Vera a little favor, would you? Break out that Masquerade breach in your pocket and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Pod by Night or Stitch of Fate. Make sure to leave us a little 5-star rating and review, would you? And if you don't, well, I guess I'll just have to send Max after you.